Medical entrepreneurs are driven. They have a certain drive. They have a certain level of focus and a predilection for success. You'll find that most medical entrepreneurs have been successful in the past and typically are kind of like the top 3% of professionals in medicine. Hey, medical entrepreneurs. Welcome to another episode of the Medical Entrepreneur Podcast, where we focus on how to become a medical entrepreneur and the growing and building of your practice. So, guys, today we're going to be talking about what are medical entrepreneurs and what is the difference between a medical entrepreneur and other medical professionals. Medical entrepreneurs, by definition, are entrepreneurs that are focused in medicine. And one of the most important things to realize is that as a medical entrepreneur, you are somebody who is driven. Most medical entrepreneurs are people who are just not happy doing the status quo. They're not happy being at the bottom of the pyramid. They're not happy having someone else control aspects of their life. They're people who want to basically achieve high levels of success and also want to be in control of their lives. And so this leads them to make the only conclusion that you can as a medical professional, which is like, in order to do that, you need to own your own practice. You need to own your own business. And unless you want to basically be an employee for someone else and have them, tell you what you're going to do and when you're allowed to do it, and basically kind of you have to jump through all these hoops in order for you to do stuff like take vacation or get time off or whatever. They are essentially in control of your life. Most medical entrepreneurs I ever talk to, that's the biggest issue they have, is they don't want someone else controlling their life. They want to be in charge. The other aspect that I hear most is that when they work so hard and they see how much revenue they generate for a hospital or for a corporation, and then they realize they get only a small percentage of that, but yet they take almost all the risk, they realize I should probably do this for myself, because it really doesn't make sense that I take all the risk, I do all the work, and then I only get a small percentage of what I actually generate. And so that pushes them to become a medical entrepreneur. There's a few more characteristics of medical entrepreneurs that are different than others. One is that they're very focused. Many times when you talk to other medical professionals, you'll find that they have so much other stuff going on in their life. Their top priority isn't their career. The top priority isn't becoming successful. Their top priority might be something related to the family. Nothing wrong with that, but it's different than what medical entrepreneurs are. The top priority may be, playing video games. Top priority may be going fishing or something like this. Once again, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's different than what medical entrepreneurs are. Medical entrepreneurs are driven. They have a certain drive. They have a certain level of focus and a predilection for success. You'll find that most medical entrepreneurs have been successful in the past and typically are kind of like the top, I'd say 3% of professionals in medicine. They're usually people who have been successful at their given trade or their given skills. So, for example, if they're an orthopedic surgeon, they were probably the first one to get really, really proficient at a certain type of surgery, and they did them very, very well. And they're usually at kind of like the best. They're essentially the best of the best. And what happens, part of becoming the best of the best, is that you always want to keep growing, because medical entrepreneurs realize that life is binary. You're either growing or you're dying. And this is so true. And when you see this, you can see this in patients. You can see it in nature. If something is not actively growing, actively becoming better, actively taking resources in and assembling them to become something greater, then by definition, it is not growing, and then it decays. Everything in our natural world around us is like that. If a plant doesn't take in nutrients, doesn't take in water to grow, eventually it will die. And it's the same way with people, and the same way with medical professionals. So if you're not actively growing and you're not actively improving on who you are, then basically what's going to happen is you're letting the effects of time essentially destroy whatever you have left. And that's, not here to judge, but that's definitely not the way I want to go out. So, and medical entrepreneurs, that would probably be one of the most painful things that they would ever want to do. So how to know if you're a medical entrepreneur is if you're somebody who enjoys being successful, someone who enjoys being in control, someone who enjoys being in charge, someone who enjoys learning new things, and someone who is probably, throughout your life has mastered skills, has mastered different levels of achievement very quickly, usually in the top, I'd say like 3%, maybe top 5%. These are typically the highest performers. And so these people are driven to be successful. These people are driven to constantly push and improve. For most people, most people look at them and say, oh, you're already successful. Why would you keep going? And for them, the reason why is because the success itself is what they're after. It's the growth. It's the process. It's not the destination. It's the journey, right? And so that's the most driving factor for most medical entrepreneurs. One of the other things that medical entrepreneurs first learn is they start to understand what business they're in. And so for a lot of people in medicine, they don't realize this because medicine is such a complex field, and the skill sets in medicine can be complex to learn and execute. So many times what you find is people that are so focused on their given trade. So maybe they're a dentist and they're so focused on, how do we, clean teeth? How do I fill a cavity that's, in this location? What's the latest technique for this or that? And while those things are important, medical entrepreneurs realize that, hey, they're running a business, they're running a clinic, they're running a practice. What business are they really in? And the conclusion that medical entrepreneurs come to is that they're in the business of acquiring new patients. That's their primary business, because you start to realize when you have your first practice that you could be the best doctor in the entire world, but if you don't have any patients to work on, that doesn't really matter, does it? And the thing is that if you can get patients in, you can also find other people to help you, and you can hire other medical professionals to do some of the work for you and even follow your protocols that you design, that you use in order to do that. And this is exactly what happened to me. When I first started my first practice, I started out as a 1099 contractor because I did not want to be controlled by a hospital corporation. I saw the way the bureaucracy was in hospitals. I didn't want any part of it. I didn't want someone who knows nothing about medicine telling me how to do my practice. I didn't want a nurse manager, telling me how I should practice or what I should have to do. I didn't want to have to go to someone and beg for time off. I didn't want to have to do any of that stuff. It just rubbed me the wrong way. I wanted to be in control of my life. I felt like I'd done enough training. I'd done enough work in my life that at this point I should be able to control my own life and my own destiny. And even if I didn't know how to do everything perfectly, and even if I made a mistake, I would rather have that than to have someone else calling the shots and be dependent on them. And so for me, that was kind of the first realization. And then when I started to build my first practice, I realized, what business am I really in? Because I could treat patients and I was very good at it. Basically I was able to patients, like I was like the favorite physician in the practice. I was very, very good at what I do, just because primarily that's always what I did. Is I always worked so hard, always stayed focused. And for example, for me, like even when I was in medical school, before I ever went to residency, I started out doing residency anesthesia. Before I ever went to anesthesia residency, I'd already done 1,000 spinals and epidurals as a medical student before I'd ever got to residency. So it was these kind of drives that make you a medical entrepreneur. But once I realized my primary business was in the actual getting of patients, if you will, or getting patients in the door, it started to change things, because you started to realize that you need to put emphasis on getting people in the door and what are you doing today to basically get more patients for tomorrow? And most medical professionals are so focused on, what is the latest journal about? How am I going to do my CMEs? What's this latest medication that got released? What's the new update on this procedure or whatever? What is insurance covering now? This kind of stuff, right? And while those things are important, the reality is that they're not nearly as important as the ability to build your own practice and the ability to attract patients to you. And so one of the things that a lot of people, when they first start their practice, they don't realize is that you have to have, A, understand what business you're in, but B, become magnetic to patients. If you chase patients, it doesn't look very good at all, especially if you're like a physician and you don't have any patients and trying to like talk people into becoming a patient. It doesn't work well. And it's something that I would never want to do. So I never did it. The thing that I find is that so often as medical professionals, we underestimate how much knowledge we have and how hungry people are to have that knowledge. So for example, if you're a GI physician, think about how many things you know and how many people that are searching the internet, even just today, for information that you know off the top of your head like this. It is so amazing. And so often the best way to become magnetic is to have really good messaging. And the way to have really good messaging is to map out a journey that your typical patient goes through. So for example, if you're dealing with someone, to keep the GI example, if you're dealing with someone who has maybe some issues with their intestines, they're not sure if they have a food allergy or what's going on. They feel tired. They feel bloated when they eat certain things, but they're not sure which things cause it. This is a classic, example of someone who might consult a primary care physician or perhaps a GI physician. And so by mapping out the journey that your patients go through, you can actually identify certain points in that journey and help your patients before they ever arrive in your office. So, for example, one of the things that we treated a lot of was knee pain. Knee pain is a huge problem in America. And interestingly enough, it is actually exceeding the estimates that were initially placed on it. So, every year, there's actually marketing and business companies that actually estimate like, okay, for, orthopedic devices for knee surgery, we expect, a 10% growth year over year, for knee pain and these kind of things, they're actually increasing faster than that. Which is really interesting. So, for example, with someone with knee pain, primarily one of the main issues they're going to have is what's wrong with my knee? My knee hurts. I'm not really sure what's wrong. What we did is we actually built a quiz that somebody could answer that essentially walks them through an algorithm to diagnose what's wrong with their knee or what the most likely diagnosis is with their knee. And then it would refer them to the clinic. It's very simple. It's like, hey, based on what you told us, we think you have this. And the next step is going to be for you to come in for an evaluation. We'll take a look at it. And then most likely we'll probably have to order some x-rays, something like this. And so you can do the same thing as a medical entrepreneur and make yourself magnetic by providing that information. And what happens is you don't have to sell anybody anything. You don't have to be a salesman. You don't have to be slimy or cheesy or put out ads with discounts. You're showing people that you can help them by actually helping them. Like, what a concept, right? But people overlook this all the time. And so because most of the people in medicine don't have a lot of business training, don't have any marketing training, this is, kind of like, revolutionary. Sad to say, but the reality is that you can map out their journey and say, okay, for the person who may have a food allergy, number one, the best thing they could probably do is to start a food diary. And record what they eat and how they feel. And that would be kind of the first thing they might do. Then number two, they might get some blood tests done, make sure make sure liver is doing good, make sure, kidneys are doing good, make sure we're not missing something, that kind of thing. And number three, they would come in and they might do some allergy testing if you want to do that. Or number three might be, hey, if you're a GI physician, you might want to take a scope, see what's going on, maybe take some biopsies, whatever, that kind of thing. And so you can map out this journey, and just by explaining the different steps of the journey and how to accomplish it, you will become one of the most magnetic GI physicians that's out there, because there's nobody else doing it and everybody wants this information. And so for most patients, they're relegated to things like Healthline, to websites that are basically written many times not by professionals, but by people that are essentially marketers or people that are, article writers from, God knows where. They can't take the complex medical understanding and break it down to basically show it to a patient. And the thing is that this is a hidden skill that you have been honing for all the years of your training. And it's like a superpower you just don't even know you have. If you are in medicine and you are interacting with patients every day, you have the ability to take very complex medical topics and make them very relatable to someone. And so that skill, that ability to do that is so valuable. You can help so many people by doing that. So think about mapping out your patient's journey. What has to happen for them to figure out what's going on? For example, for knee pain, you're going to do this quiz. The quiz is going to give you a few different options, going to work you through an algorithm. Based on that algorithm, there's different things that happen. Obviously, if it's like a high energy accident versus a low energy, we're going to treat it differently, right? So based on where the knee pain is, it's going to be treated differently, this kind of stuff, right? So you can help them by getting them some basic, kind of getting them part of the way there. Say, hey, it's probably one of these four things. Your next step is XYZ. So the next thing we want to consider is that in order to become more magnetic as a medical entrepreneur, you may consider using things such as lead magnets. Lead magnets are basically a concept where you provide some kind of information to someone in order to get their information, like their name and their email, perhaps their name and their phone number, this kind of stuff. This can be as simple as building what's called a free report. So you can have a free report of like the best ways to treat knee pain without having surgery. That's a very popular free report that we've used in the past, and it's been very, very successful. You can also have reports, for example, if you're a GI physician and the top 10 things you need to know about food allergies before you ever talk to your doctor, stuff like that. If you're in aesthetics or plastic surgery, you might have the consumer's guide to facial aesthetics without having surgery. These kind of things, right? So there are basically so many things that you can provide that will help people. And when you actually help them, what occurs is they see you as an authority, and they're way more likely to make an appointment or come in for a consultation because you've actually shown them that you can help them by helping them. So it's very, very useful. The other thing that's really important is to understand that the patients that are out there are seeking these answers. And so by providing them information And by helping them come in to see you, you're basically doing them a service. So often in medicine, we're told things like, sales are bad, or many times medical professionals feel that like sales is kind of dirty, or it's like a used car salesman kind of thing. The reality is in medicine, you never want to do anything like a used car salesman would. And that goes for anything from the way you dress to the way you act, to the way that you care about people, right? So nothing like that would you ever want to do. However, if you have your own clinic and your primary business that you're in is in the getting of customers, getting of patients, you need to find ways to show that you can help people and then also make it easy for people to come see you. I'm always amazed whenever I talk to another medical entrepreneur, how difficult they make it for people to become patients. Many times, you have to call the office and the office has to answer at a certain time. So only between business hours does the office answer. You have to have a referral to get in. You have to, have this and that and the other thing. Like you have to jump through so many hoops to actually become a patient of some, physician or a nurse practitioner or whatever, that it makes it such a barrier that, then they wonder like, why don't I have enough patients? Well, the reason why is because have you ever thought of have you ever walked through how difficult it is to get in the door? It's very difficult. The easier you can make it, the better. Now we have technology and tools like Click Practice that allow you to have a text message inbox where you can have your entire front desk team work on the same inbox that shows your text message, that shows your Instagram DMs, that shows your Facebook messages, that show your Google My Business messages, that shows, all the stuff on one place. And so you can have your entire front desk staff respond to people immediately and help them. It's coming to a point now in medicine where medicine is starting to fall so far behind the other businesses based on the implementation of technology that it's just coming to a point where people just don't want to go to the doctor anymore. People don't want to go see a specialist anymore unless they absolutely have to. And so you're only getting kind of like the worst of the worst patients. You're getting the sickest of the sickest patients, because if you're an average patient who isn't that bad off, jumping through all those hoops just doesn't make sense for you. And so the easier you can make it for a patient to come and see you, or the patient to come and at least get information about you, the better you'll do as a medical entrepreneur. And so think about two things. One is, what business are you really in? Two, how can you become more magnetic to patients by helping them, by showing you can help them, by actually helping them? And then three, what can you give away to potential patients or people that are in need that can help guide them through the journey that they're about to go through? So often, for people that, for example, imagine all the people that have celiac disease. There's so many, right? And it seems to be increasing. And so for these people, they're left and relegated to like finding blog articles that, somebody who wrote that maybe doesn't even have a medical degree, doesn't really understand what's going on. They have information from Healthline, which is, some very basic information that doesn't really explain very much. Like just by you providing information to show somebody, like, how would you actually know if you have celiac disease? Here are 4 easy ways you can know. Blah, 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 blah. By providing information, you really help those people, and then you naturally become an authority to them, and your ability to attract patients just skyrockets. Not only that, when that occurs, those things are often shared among multiple people. One of the things that we saw when we built our quiz for knee pain was that the number of people who actually shared the quiz for knee pain was huge. I think it was like 30%. So not only did people actually take it for their own knee, but they said, hey, I know Bob over here has knee pain. Here, check this out, Bob. This thing will tell you what's wrong. And it sounds so simple, but I mean, this stuff isn't rocket science, right? Like you could probably figure out what top 5 things is hurting someone's knee just by asking a few simple questions, correct? So, I mean, you can provide that same thing with technology now, and you don't have to actually be there. You just do it one time, and for the rest of the time, it's working for you, and it's attracting patients, it's making you magnetic to them, and then people come to seek you out, and when they come to seek you out, the entire dynamic is different. I also want to mention that if you are a medical professional and you are still taking insurance, you need to start to diversify as fast as you can into cash. If you're not aware of it, we have high levels of inflation in this country, much higher than the government is saying. And this is why it's so important, because every time there is high inflation, in case you haven't noticed, your insurance reimbursements never increase. They always decrease, right? If they do increase, it's like a very minimal increase, like 3%. And just as a funny thing, like I remember when they talked about how they're going to increase primary care insurance. They had stopped increasing they had stopped increasing insurance reimbursement for something like 20 years. And then they gave them a 3% increase. Well, what about all those years of compounded losses? If every year there was 3% inflation, and even if it was only for 10 years, then you have 30% loss in your wages. And you got a 3% increase. Congratulations. That means nothing. And so now you have inflation running at the minimum of 10%, probably closer to 15%. And so that's why so many medical professionals I talk to that are taking insurance are basically kind of at a point where they don't understand what's going on. They're like, I don't understand. Like, I'm seeing more patients than I ever did before, but like what I take home is less and less. And it just seems like the money I get doesn't go as far. And the reason why is because the inflation is so high that basically, even if you make more dollar amount, the buying power of those dollars is so weakened. Your currency is actually devaluing, right? So like your actual buying power for the money you make is actually decreasing. That's why you see costs going up everywhere, right? The cost of your malpractice increased, the cost of your electricity increased, the cost of your staff increased, the cost of your insurance, the cost of your deliveries from supplier like McKesson or Henry Schein or something. They now have little extra additional fuel taxes on there, right? All these kind of things. They're all increasing, and that just eats out your bottom line. So it's so important that you convert over to cash as soon as you can. You don't have to convert your entire practice overnight, but considering offering one of your services, maybe a premium service that you have, and offering it for cash or offering a cash upgrade to it, because it will literally change your life. I've talked to so many medical entrepreneurs. I've talked them into doing this. And when they do, they always report back that like, they're always very excited because for some reason they had the belief that just because someone had insurance, they wouldn't buy other medical services through cash. That is not true. Many times people will buy many, many things for advantages in cash. I mean, take, for example, in Florida, they have all these little DMV places set up in the mall. And they're not actually the DMV that belongs to the city. What it is that nobody wants to go to the big DMV by the state where you have to wait in line for however number of hours, interact with a DMV worker who's just, angry at the world or whatever. Who wants to deal with that experience? You can pay an extra $100, go to a place where the people are actually friendly. They do the paperwork for you and you're in and out in 15 minutes and you got your driver's license renewed. People pay a premium for that every day. And think about it, there's an entire industry that is there to support that. So if people are willing to pay a premium to get their driver's license renewed, they're definitely willing to pay a premium to get excellent medical care. So think about how you can also offer that to your patients. I love you guys. I love you, medical entrepreneurs. Think about that before the first of the year. Make some cash offers if you can. And remember, what business are you really in? How can you become more magnetic to your patients? How can you show people that you can help them by actually helping them? It's a novel concept, but it works really well. And remember, one vision, one purpose, freedom through prosperity. All right, talk to you guys later.